ethical issues, the social aspect, we've heard them mentioned by Mrs. Keizer already this morning, and also in our last conversation, we touched upon them briefly. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper into this subject, and I'm going to do that with two digital guests. You can already see them on the screen. First of all, Françoise Soulier, Scientific Advisor at Hub France IA, and Emiel Arts, Chair of the Working Group Social Acceptance and Inclusion from the Netherlands AI Coalition. Good morning. Wonderful that you're here. As we all know, we saw some chat questions come in. That's the same for this discussion. So if you want to know anything more, if you want to add a nuance maybe or something to discuss, please type it in the chat box and we'll make sure that we can answer them here on stage. Ms. Soulier, let me start with you. France was one of the first countries who was active on the areas of ethics and AI. Could you tell us a little bit more in the way how France has been working and dealing with this?
Actually, the ethics issue is something extremely important because, as Cedric O mentioned before, there is still among citizens some opposition to AI because they don't trust AI. So to me, ethics is really absolutely needed because we need to build the trust. This is how we started working with the high-level expert group in AI, of which I was a member for 2 years, where we delivered the tool which is now very widespread called ALTAI, the assessment list on AI. So trustworthy AI is really a need, otherwise all of these benefits that can come from AI will not happen. So in France, we've been working pretty hard on this group. We had 5 members working in it. Now we have joined into the GPI, the Global Partnership in AI that some people mentioned, with one other group which is co-chaired by Raja Shatila, our professor in Paris here. His co-chair is Yoshua Benjo. So this topic is handled very actively by French people. Some of the issues we might discuss later is, okay, how do you do it?
Yes, that's one of the questions that need to be answered. I see you're nodding as well, Mr. Arts. Maybe you can highlight the perspective from the Dutch view. How are we historically involved in AI, and why do we want to play such a prominent role?
Well, the Dutch have been always eager to participate to progress and innovation, and that holds especially true for the field of artificial intelligence. So over its 50 years of existence, we have had and seen great contributions from academics in the Netherlands, from a variety of fields like computer science, but also electrical and mechanical engineering. And also some big companies have been taking up leadership in this domain. It was already mentioned by Secretary Cedric O that he had a conversation with Philips, and coming from this classical consumer electronics domain, moving into the field of healthcare now, they have been working on AI technologies for a very long time. And that has resulted also in a lot of interest in the Netherlands in looking at what does it mean for society in the large. So also from the fields of humanities, behavioral sciences, social sciences, a lot of interest has been developed in following what AI can mean for people in the broadest sense. So that's where we come from. And of course, we always would like to be in the front row as the Dutch. And so from that explains, for me at least, why we want to be involved in this very important development.
So very eager from the Dutch side. I'm sure that's also the feeling in France. Ms. Soulier, how would you like to collaborate with the Netherlands on this area particularly?
I think there are already, groups where the Netherlands, and I was very happy to hear that that Netherlands had joined the GPI. The GPI is a very large initiative worldwide with many countries contributing. We are entering now a year of activity where this work is going to probably become even more active. So this is one thing where it's important that the Netherlands take part into the different global initiatives where our word as Europeans need to be maintained and said in the face of sometimes different confrontation. So this is one thing. Now, basically, talking about ethics and talking about trustworthy AI is fine, but as a computer scientist, I'm always very practical and trying to figure out how we're going to actually help the companies do it. So this may take put tools together. This may mean organizing together projects that we can work on. But to me, concrete results is really what we need. We need research, that's for sure, but we really need to produce results and tools. This is what at Hub France AI, where I'm working, we see companies basically telling us, okay, we have our ethics charts. How do we connect our work on ethics for AI with our ethics charts? How do we have a tool to evaluate the ethicness, if I may say that, of our products? So really being concrete and practical is what is hard. And as usual, you know, we always say that David is in the details, and there it is totally true.
So we need practical results. Is there anything you can already mention, maybe an example of this that you found, like, this is what we need, that's the step that needs to be taken?
Well, you see, I was talking about the AI Ashleg just before. The first year we produced a questionnaire. Okay, the questionnaire had lots of questions. So what we did at the Hub France AI was actually work with our members. We are a little bit like your group and NAIC, right? So our members assembled and tried to go through these questionnaires and realized that there were way too many questions. So we actually produced recommendations which were taken into account by the Ashleg the year after. And there we produce a shorter list and a tool which allows a company to practically evaluate their product, their AI product. There is still, so this tool is there, it's the Alta, it's online, you can access it, it's open source, you can even modify it if you want. And we think that this is a good progress, but we are not there yet. We probably need much more. Companies tell us, you know, assessing the ethicness of or trustworthiness of our AI product takes lots of time. So we would need ways to share maybe the work between different people in the companies. We would need maybe easier tools or products to do it. So everything which can make that work more practical is really important, because companies have told us, okay, we prepare, we design a product, so we are going to run the test at design time. Then we produce the tool and we release it. And then the tool starts working, and we will want to basically reassess the tool after a few months of life, because things might have changed, because maybe the product is not really used the way we thought it would be. So it's not one test of trustworthiness that we're doing. It's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 per year. If this thing takes us months of work to do, we won't do it.
So it needs to be continuous and continual development.
Yep. Yes. It's a continuous process.
Yes.
And, this is one project we have with Professor De Villers, who was supposed to be here, but unfortunately has an illness problem in her family today. We want to look at the data that the tool is using and the data that the tool is generating when it's used, to assess whether the tool is used the way it was supposed to, whether usually you test for biases in the data before ex ante if you want, but not ex post. So all these work trying to understand in more details how the tool was designed. Okay, that's hard, but need to be simplified with tools.
And then if it actually is effective as well. I want to move quickly to the Netherlands, because working groups, that's how we work. You're part of this working group focusing on this subject, Mr. Aerts. This is one of the examples that's very practical. Does it match up with your perspective to what is needed right now? On the one side, for companies to help them along this journey, but on the other side, for society as a whole. How do citizens start accepting this? What is the mission of the human-centric group?
Yes, that's a very important point, and I think that we comply to a large extent with what Ms. Soulier has been telling about this in terms of the French approach. So what we really would like to do is separate two discussions in the Netherlands. And one is the discussion on what we often call general AI, or the super intelligence that is threatening society. So very many people, it's a typically Western view on the subject. They feel this dystopic Frankenstein-like development, where we can upload the mind in the end and have a recursive intelligence improvement to the extent that man will be dominated by AI artifacts. And of course, we don't like that.
No, that does not sound like a good plan.
No, and it blurs the discussion to a large extent. So we would like to separate this discussion from, let's say, the more down-to-earth discussion Mrs. Soulier was also referring to, and that is the discussion that has to do with, for instance, look at what existing AIs already can do in a large variety of applications to make them trustworthy. So critically examine assumptions that we use for the interplay between man and machine, but also involving the ethical and societal issues that are pressing. So what do people really feel about this, and why do they feel offended, but not at the long-term development, but also at the short-term development, and then focus on what we call the discourse, so the public debate, and make it practical. So that is our approach to a large extent.
And what plays a role in this are the so-called ELSA labs.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the concept, and are they being constructed at the moment?
Yes, that's a thrilling concept, I dare to say. It's a little bit complementary to what Mr. Wijzelaar told about the EKI labs. So we feel, without, let's say, amplifying the distinction between them, but just to put it in perspective. So the EKI labs, they focus on, let's say, technological developments, and then try to advance them, so to scale them up and things like that. But in the ELSA labs, where ELSA is an acronym for ethical, legal, and societal aspects, there we focus on, let's say, primarily the societal issues, so big problems that we have in society, and the sustainable development objectives, so the 17 that we already have, can play an important role there, but also the Dutch mission oriented research and innovation can play a dominant role. And what the ELSA labs primarily do is they look for validated insights, where we use data and sophisticated algorithms to really find insights that matter in complicated situations. And the underlying hypothesis is that if we have these validated insights at our disposal, then we also can find solutions that make sense.
So that's one of the things that's in progress right now. And also they're being built and constructed right now, aren't they?
Yes, sure. We have a few of these under construction. And one of them, for instance, is in the field of safety and security in cities, to look at policing strategies and analytics. Another one is on poverty. Poverty is also in the Netherlands still a major issue. And it is a wicked problem, as we call it, because it involves very many different elements. It is not only related to spending too much money, but it also has to do with often more deeper elements within, let's say, the life of individuals, reaching up to the health situation even, and also involving other parties like the the text developments there. And so this is a bigger issue, and we have in that field a great development in the southern part of the Netherlands. It's at the Heerlen-Breitland campus. There we have something under construction that is really meeting all the requirements that we have, let's say, drawn up for a genuine ELSA lab.
Wonderful. So that's something to keep an eye on in the future as well. With that, I would like to thank you both for joining us here today. And I'd like to wish you a lovely rest of your day and join the conversation afterwards as well, if you can.
Thank you very much.